portrays an incident of assault and violence against police. Viewer discretion is advised. This is Baltimore City Police Officer Jorge Bernardes Ruiz. In a newly released video shot in 2016, Ruiz is seen with his knee on the back of an unknown man with a gun pointed at the man's head. His message was a clear one. Concerned onlookers, adhere to my dictates or else. Here, we can hear Ruiz saying to Baltimore residents, it is documented that Baltimore police officer Jorge Bernardes Ruiz is a repeat violent offender, even without access to all complaints against Ruiz, undisclosed by BPD Internal Affairs records. 6 cases involving Ruiz are known. This video will briefly highlight 6 total cases beginning in July of 2013. Case 1, Abdul Salam, July 1st, 2013. Here, Salam is seen victoriously smiling in celebration after the jury found Ruiz and 2 other cops liable for brutality against him. However, because the trial was civil, not criminal, Ruiz was not fired and he did not go to jail.
Police profiled me. They followed me in the back of my house, harassing me. Police proceeded to violently and hostilely approach my van with me and my son in it. As I announced, this was my home, guns drawn. Once they reached my vehicle, they violently pulled me out, ramshacked my vehicle with my 3-year-old son strapped in his car seat, threw me against the gate, slammed me repeatedly, hit me up by my feet, and when I'm upside down, they proceeded to drop me on my head, hog-tie me, and immediately when I fell on my head, Ruiz, in a wrestling type of action, and kind of put my knee against my neck. I was arrested. I had no idea what I was being arrested for. My son is scarred to this day. He remembers the incident as it happened yesterday. When he talks about it, he always refers to Daddy being on the floor with police yesterday.
Case 2, Darrell Harris, profiled, as seen in this video, July 17th, 2013.
I know a lot. You give me a ticket? You my registration? To verify that the seatbelt as a ranger is certified. What? I don't feel safe right now. Do you want me to step out the car? I will step out the car. I don't know these men. What are you talking about? That's all I want. Just take up over to the head. What's that? And we are 2 law-abiding citizens that we're getting targeted and I don't know why.
Just 24 hours later, Bernardes Ruiz played a leading role in the police killing of unarmed Tyrone West. Case number 3, the murder of Tyrone West, July 18th, 2013.
My brother Tyrone West was brutally murdered on July 18th, 2013.
In both of these cases, when you look at the pleas and the harsh language of these officers that have been quoted to me by reliable witnesses, the N-word.
And Killer Ruiz and Killer Chapman and the rest of those 11 to 15 killers, including David Lewis, took something from my family that they could never give us again. And that was my brother Tyrone West, one unarmed man who was brutally murdered, beat to death in broad daylight.
And Mr. West begging for his life.
All right, I got you. All right, I heard you. All right, I got you. What the fuck? My hands are down. I heard you already. What are you doing? My hands are down. My hands are down. That's what I heard he said. Before the metal darts bore into him. Before all that current tore into him. 50,000 volts, not once but twice, causing a schism in his neural and cardiac system. Let's do the division. 100,000 by 20 years of a young black man's life. That would be 5,000 units of hate for each year he had to live through the stress and strife of being a young African in a society full of banality and police brutality. A society of racial profiling. Something smiling. Thinking in its collective aid, oh well, just another nigga dead. Cops copped the life of color. A cat got capped by even cops of color who copped out and got co-opted into a corrupt conformity that consigns our kind to some crazy contumely, creating a contempt that ramps up amps to stab out our community and watch the SWAT our attempt to live humanly. Yeah, I know that damn goose made it kind of loose, but that was no justification for an electronic noose. They made it seem like he was in a threatening position, but that's another damn law enforcement fiction, because eyewitnesses made statements to the contrary. What I witnessed too often from the constabulary is a lack of emotional fitness to be carrying weaponry, and a dangerous disposition to be the adversary. And so, he was tasered. You know, that electronic control device has gotten out of control, and it's now the device of choice for many now control freak. That non-lethal weapon, which has been surprisingly lethal for the more than 300 people whose lives it's lethal. I already had a negative view about it. I never thought this close to home the news would hit. Check my phone. 5 times my sister had called, oh shit, something's wrong, y'all. Found out later. To shock the ball, to stun the cry. The guy who loved to run the ball, whose smile was still so childlike on a man-child's body, tall, was shocked and stunned to death, shrouded under hatred's pall. The first baby boy of my sister. How I wish I could be with her, how more than ever I missed her. I could only imagine her screams as her young mister, which the creative gift in her was ripped from her, creating a rift in her. God, please uplift in her the strength to go on. Took him to a game once. Woo-hoo. Thank God for that one time, which he enjoyed and appreciated. Let me know I wasn't hated, though my calls and cards were belated, and though I rarely was around, he never berated. Now, this is no excuse for it. It's nothing that makes it right. But admittedly, for a time, his mother and I were running tight. No, not like there was a fight, nothing deranged, just a brother and a sister estranged, though that was beginning to change. But for the longest time, it was for no other reason than that we hadn't sat down to talk. Now we were in a season of tragedy, which brought us into a closer walk. Now I respected my sister because she always invited, always pleaded with me to come get her and be that uncle I was supposed to be. Spend time with her. Be a man with her. Encourage and if need be reprimand him. Help him focus. Teach him. Give him some focus where he can reach it and center himself and execute his plans. Now he's been executed by trigger-happy hands. Weird, isn't it? Spent a career working with other people's kids while your relationship with some of your own hits the skids, made slippery with good intentions. So with all that having been mentioned, can't make the same mistakes of absence with the next two. Gotta honor Rel's memory and let them be true. Oh, internal investigations, of course, found no wrongdoing and thus no punitive action was ensuing. Obviously, we weren't really looking. Too much of our system to make the correct booking. The not-so-grand jury made no convictions. The oppressors hoped that we lacked conviction and were wither in this war of attrition. They acted as if we owed them contrition. But no. There would be no acquiescence to the slaver's electronic whip. No letting the memory of Jarrell another slip. No voltage that would leave our minds so dazed, our souls so... Takes that we accept this shit is just an unfortunate phase and do nothing but turn the page or turn aside from our justified rage. No, we won't let ourselves be consumed by hate, but we don't appreciate the continued rate at which our killers get to skate. Too many folk have been charged and their murderers not charged. Too many folk have been charged while in the authorities charged and they're twisted in some dying position while those in charge get to hide behind their badges and positions. So I charge us with the mission of unplugging the injustice which kills our brothers and sisters. Which kills our children. Shocking, but true. So let's do what we gotta do. Speak love to our young ones while we have the opportunity. speak truth to power to end police impunity. We cannot and will not accept this current reoccurrence of hate. The survival of our families is at issue. Indeed, the survival of our community. And Yorel, I miss you. Poem for Jarrell. This is West Wednesday's number 483. Make some noise for yourself, make some noise for the West Coalition. It is the great honor of myself and my colleagues here at Red Emmons Bookstore Coffee House to once again welcome Tawanda Jones and the West Coalition to Red Emmons, this time in our brand new location. I am the poet known as Analysis. This location here in the Waverly neighborhood of Baltimore is brand new for us. We have purchased two buildings, the one that you're sitting in, and one being renovated right next to you. And we're so excited now to have the doors open. We're excited, moreover, to be able to be that space we want to be for crucially important movements and leaders in those movements, such as the West Coalition. This indeed is foundational to the purpose of Red Emmons beginning in 2004. Foundational to its continuation. We are a radical left worker collective. That means everybody on the team is either an owner or in position to become an owner. And this type of event, this type of outside the margins mobilization is what we hope to be about and what we will continue to strive to be about. So again, it is our very great honor that the West Coalition has returned to Red Emmons this evening. We do want you to keep an eye out for upcoming events here because there are all kinds of good author talks and events and things coming up. If you go to redemmons.org and go to the events page, that's redemmas.org, go to the events tab, you will see all kinds of things. I just want to mention a couple, and we're going to get into our discussion for the evening. This coming Wednesday, all right, the 2nd at 7 p.m. this coming Wednesday, Eric Jackson will be presenting Boots, all right? B-O-O-T-S, you'll see how that's spelled when you go to the website. Liberation in the masses and in the margins, that will be in conversation with Ed Whitfield, an important tool for our continued political education, telling the stories of groups that took liberation into their own hands. I like that because that is very much what the West Coalition is about, taking liberation, taking the movement for justice into our own hands as a community. Margaret Killjoy will be here with a very interesting talk on Thursday the 3rd, this coming week, at 7 p.m. We won't be here tomorrow. If you dig all kinds of outside the box, speculative fiction and fantasy and how that applies to our community, make sure you're here for that. Our very own member of our sister collective, Nani Ferreira Matthews, will be here with Andrew Zonderveld Saturday, November the 5th. Why anarchists don't vote? That ought to be a very interesting conversation. I do want to highlight down the road a few weeks, especially in relationship to what we're talking about this evening, Andrea Ritchie. Many of you know her for her crucial work in Visible No More, looking at police violence against women. Andrea Ritchie and Marion Kaba have a brand new joint out. It's called No More Police, a case for abolition. That is going to be very good. That's going to be on Saturday, November the 26th. Saturday, November the 26th at 7 p.m. We have the book now. Make sure you tell people about that. We want the house packed for that particular event because to make an understatement, it is a crucial conversation, again, in relationship to what we are talking about this evening. And last but not least, you know I can't get on the mic without mentioning my baby, Red Emmons Mother Earth Poetry Vibe. We are very excited to be back live this November, Saturday the 12th at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. on, not 7 p.m. like our usual start time, but 6 p.m. on Saturday, November the 12th. Again, that's Red Emmons Mother Earth Poetry Vibe. That is the DMV's open mic of peace, justice, poetry. Featuring for us that evening, coming up from D.C., the dynamic C. Alexandria Bernard Thomas. That is something you don't want to miss. So I know there are poets in the room, right? No, I didn't like that response. I know there are poets in the room, right? All right, I thought so. There's a poet in everybody when you come out. So I hope you get here on the 12th of November. I am going to introduce a true leader in the community. Many of you in this room, most of you in this room,
are familiar with her. Many of you that are listening to the live stream are familiar with her, but many of you may not be. So I want to read this bio, and then we are going to sit down and chat with this dear sister. And as part of the bio, we're going to give the background of why we're even here, but then Tawanda is going to unpack it some more for us. On July 18, 2013, 2 plainclothes officers in an unmarked car pulled a 44-year-old black man, Tyrone West, over in a residential neighborhood in East Baltimore for an alleged minor traffic infraction. Witness statements indicated that he was pulled out of his car and attacked by the police. What ensued was the brutal murder by beating and suffocation of Tyrone by 17, count them, 17 Baltimore City police officers and 1 Morgan State University officer. After the untimely demise of her brother Tyrone, Tawanda Jones created West Wednesday. I'm going to drop down because we're going to get Tawanda to actually unpack more of what West Wednesday is about. I just want to tell you that Tawanda has been in various media events. She has testified to the Commission of Inquiry on Systemic Racist Police Violence against the people of African descent in the United States, and a number of other opportunities. As she will tell you, she and the West Coalition always say, can't stop, won't stop until killing cops and cell blocks. I need you to make some real radical red Emmons noise for Tawanda Jones.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. I wanted to thank my brother Analysis. I wanted to thank his response in this, and it's just a lot. So I feel really emotional right now because I remember the first time I was being in that way I was at their old location. You know, the same way I felt then, like disgusted. I felt so many feelings and emotions. I'm feeling them all over again. And it's not about what this is just about what my family has been going through for now 9 years, 483 weeks, 3,383 days. I literally count down every day. Nobody families deserves to go through this type of pain. It gets torturous. It's feels like I'm stuck in a nightmare that I can never wake up from. So I just wanted to thank you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. You already know your home, Red Emmons is home. For you and anybody that is committed to the struggle, and without trying to blow smoke up anybody's behind or blow heads up, I can truly say that you are exemplary to a whole lot of us in the DMV in terms of what needs to happen as far as sustained action. And I want to underline that word sustained because, as you mentioned, this is it staggers the mind to even let it come out your mouth that this is West Wednesday 483. There's something very good and something very horrible about that. It's very good that you and the West Coalition and allies have been able to sustain that. I'm honored to have been even just a small piece of that. It is horrific that there needs to be a West Wednesday 483. So what you exemplify is sustained struggle, and I want to come back to that in terms of what we can learn from the West Coalition as far as sustained movements are concerned and what needs to happen. But I'm wondering for those in the Red Emmons family who may not quite be familiar with the story, I mean, I gave you the general overview of it, but why don't you tell us in whatever details you want to emphasize or whatever you want to say about it, really the story of Tyrone, even in terms of who Tyrone was as a person, and the brother that he was to you, and the family member, and then again the story of what happened in terms of what you might want to emphasize about it.
Yes, thank you. So first of all, my big brother Tyrone West, he was the first grandchild born in our family. He was the glue of our family. He was a father. And he was an upcoming, inspiring artist. He loved drawing ever since we were children, and pretty much he was like a father figure to me, like everything. And just looking back, like on our lives growing up, I would have never dreamt what had happened, what had came to pass, but nevertheless, just looking back at our greatest memories of just him with his art club, and he taught me how to draw, and he's the reason why I can do little stuff, nothing big like him, but I could do some little drawing in my classroom and whatnot, but nevertheless, he was a true artist. He was just like the peacemaker. He was the guy that everybody in my family could come to no matter what. Like if somebody was going through any type of trials and tribulations, he was always there. And so just leading up to that and born and raised in Baltimore, and for him to be 44 years old and his life just snatched, literally is just unreal. And I remember before it even happened, with me being a believer in God and having like visions and seeing things sometimes that I don't even want to see. I remember having a dream that he literally got killed by the police, and in the dream, it wasn't really no big detail. It was just late breaking news that Tyrone West was murdered by police officers. And I remember at that time waking up like, oh my God, so glad that it was a dream, so glad that I can wake up. And now I can't wake up. And I remember when this dream in particular took place, literally my brother was still incarcerated. He was literally weeks away from being, let go and whatnot. So nevertheless, I remember I couldn't wait to get on that van to go to Hagerstown to tell him about the nightmare, give my big brother a hug. And when I told him about the nightmare, he was like, oh my God, sis. He was like, yeah, that was terrible. He said, but you got to get me out of here, because he was telling me about how the police were racist there, and like how they just literally like treated, black people just terrible in there. He's like, sis, you got to get me out there. Like, they were just saying like how they had let some guy go in the kitchen that wasn't even doing nothing because he saw the COs doing dirty stuff. So we went through our little conversation, but most important, I was glad that that was a dream that I had. It wasn't real. So pretty much, the fast forward just for time's sake, July 18th, I just always try to block that number. Anything leading with the 7 and the 18, even if I look at the time on my watch, 7:18, it just takes me there. It just does something to me. But literally on July 18th, I'll never forget, he was home, he was doing what he couldn't wait to come home to raise his family. He couldn't wait. He was so excited and delighted to get his driver's license so he could be a productive citizen again. And the crazy part, when he went to jail, for a crime that he really didn't even commit. Like, he wasn't a perfect guy. I'm not going to paint him off to be, because no one's perfect. But he wasn't a murderer. But it's just sad that you grow up and the streets teach you different things you can't tell on somebody, or you'll be this and you'll be that. And literally, he took a charge that wasn't even his because he was in somebody's house and got caught up in a house raid. And literally, and just me going through the courthouse, seeing it, and I remember advocating for him even when he was alive, and saying how fair and unfair, the system was corrupt. They wanted him to cop onto something. He's like, I'm not copping out, I'm not telling nobody. So, but it is what it is. But long story short, I remember him. He's already home now. He's home now for like a year and a few months. He's doing good. We're going to church every Sunday together. He was my church buddy. He was washing my car every week. We were like literally, he wanted to hand wash my car just to make sure he was making sure my oil was checked, like doing everything, man, to make sure his sister was okay. And literally that day, I let him borrow my vehicle to take it, so he wouldn't have to catch the bus to go to work. But literally, he was so physically fit, he would walk to work. He called it good exercise. He would literally walk to work every day just for the hell of it. Not because he didn't have money to get in the cab, or even he liked physically working out, lifting the weights, doing that kind of stuff. Long story short, the day that started off so beautiful, he called me and he asked me, hey sis, good morning, you ready? And he always had a favorite saying, like, and I said, how you feel? And he was like, I'm chilling like Batman in the ceiling of my favorite movie. It's like heaven or earth, and that was his favorite saying, and that let me know that he was doing good. So that morning he was happy, and he was talking about his son Trayvon. He's like, yeah, you know, he was like, since I think I'm ready to get this house for my son, me and my son, and then he started talking about his eldest daughter and son too. And he was like, yeah, all of us, he said, Shay, Ty, and Trey, we're gonna be a happy family. I'm get to, you know, hopefully have some grandkids and all this good stuff. Because he just had one grandchild that he barely just got to meet, but he never got a chance to meet any of the rest of his grandbabies. It's so sad and disgusting. But as time goes on to this horrible day, he go to work, I go to work. He get off, he holds my car, he pulls up on the side of the playground, pick me up, and then we proceeded to go home. And I remember my daughter at the time, my oldest daughter, was working a McDonald's job. And she called me, she said, Mom, you come to get me? I said, no, I'm about to see if your uncle can come get you tonight. I said, hint, because I knew he was listening. I said, because I'm tired, I need to prepare my lesson, you know, because I was teaching summer camp then. So I was like, I need to prepare my lesson so he can hold the car all night if he come get you. So he said, oh yeah. He said, you want me on the car? I said, yeah. So long story short, our night was going perfect. We picked up food from a local restaurant. While we there, he get a call from a young lady he barely knew. You know, he knew her a few weeks or whatever. And long story short, that leads to her saying to him, her asking him for a ride. She's like, hey, I'm stranded. You got your sister's car? He said, yeah. She said, could you come get me? Because she said, I called like 2 different lists. Nobody's coming to pick me up, and I really need to get to my mom's house. So he's like, well, let me ask my sister. She's right here. So I'm hearing the whole conversation. I'm like, long as you put your niece in the equation, you good. So long story short, he literally leaves me, and within a half hour later, this is 6:30, within a half hour later, my brother's dead. But the whole time, nobody calls us. I'm sitting in my house, and I literally started feeling pain all over my neck, body, back. And it felt like, am I having a mini stroke? Like everything was on the left side. And the way I can describe the pain is if someone broke my neck. And I'm screaming and howling. I didn't want to upset my smaller children. And long story short, I knew something wasn't right because immediately the pain lasted maybe 10 minutes. After the pain's gone, I'm like, oh my God, something's wrong with Tyrone. So I'm literally calling around. I'm calling him first. He didn't answer. Me and him always had a thing. Even if our phone died, give it like an hour or two to charge up, but we must call each other within 2 hours. Because he always believed in great communication, especially in this crazy world we live in. So long story short, I done called him over 200 times. I done literally sent my fiance to walk down his house on feet, you know, just to make sure. I'm like, as long as you see that green Mercedes Benz, I'm good. Maybe his phone's dead, but when he got there and he called me and said, the car's not here, and I literally was like, look, catch a cab back up here now. I said, I need you. I said, something is wrong with him. I said, and I knew then. Long story short, I called one of my exes who used to be a city police officer. And I'm like, look, I said, I don't know why I got a real crazy feeling, and I feel like I'm really acting off the spirit. I said, but God just told me to give you a call. Are you at work? He said something sarcastic, like, yeah, I'm at work. I was like, thank goodness. I said, my brother is missing. He was like, what do you mean your brother is missing? He said, Tyrone. I said, yes, he's missing. And he was like, what you mean? I said, you know my car, just literally, whatever you cops do to look for a car, look for my car. I said, God is telling me for you to find my car and find my brother. He said, well, once I finish my paperwork, I'll, you know, see what I can do. And I'm like, okay. And I said, let me ask you another question. I said, this is gonna sound weird as hell. I said, I don't even know why I'm asking you this. He's like, what's up? I said, did you just get a signal 13? I didn't even know what a signal 13 meant. I didn't know anything. So he said, yeah, I got a signal 13 maybe 20 minutes ago. I'm like, oh my God, that's my brother. Please go check that out. He's like I said, he said, you really going crazy. You are going crazy. And he's being sarcastic and smart. I'm like, how being crazy? He said, that doesn't mean that your brother's there. That means the officer's hurt or something. I said, I don't give a damn what the code means. I'm making a connection. Something told me to call you to tell you to check on my brother, and something told me to ask you about this signal 13. Long story short, he ain't paid me no mind. I hung up. I'm calling my family. I even called my daughter at work. And she's like, hey, Ma, you ready to come get me? I'm coming to my uncle. I said, no, something bad happened. And I'm telling my baby, something bad happened to her uncle, literally. And she's crying like, Mama. And I said, I don't know. And she's like, what? I had to hang up with her. Long story short, forward. I know I've been here for a second, but literally on the 10 o'clock news, late breaking news, I'll never forget, I'm talking to my Aunt Diane, who literally helped raise me in Tyrone since we were little. Her and her mom look like twins. And you know, same age type thing, you know, a year apart, like they were so close. And here it is, I'm now talking to my mom, I'm talking to my Aunt Diane, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, did you find out any information? She's like, no, and I remember when Barry walked into that room and he said, you were right, and I'm like, right about what? And I'm telling her, Diane, hold on. He was like, they killed your brother, and I'm trying to assert what he's saying to me, and I'm like, they killed who? What are you talking about? So literally a part of me died. And I'm like, who killed my brother? He said, the police. And I'm turning my TV, because at the time, my TV, my big screen was like on this thing, you could just turn it around. So he turned it around to me, and I just remember seeing my brother's dead body on the lifeless body, on the ground, his hand dropped down. He's on Kickmore Parkway, and I'll never forget one of the witnesses. She had some pretty bright paint shoes on, and she was crying nonstop, saying they did not deserve to beat that man the way they did. They beat him from one side of the street to the next. He was screaming, Trayvon Martin, help me. And I'm like, oh my God, I just remember just like my whole world ended right there. My relationship with God ended right there. I had suicidal thoughts, but the only thing they kept me going is I want my family to feel the pain that I felt, and I knew that I was a mother and I had children. I did not want to be here no more. I did not. Like, I'm like, losing her was like losing my mother all over again, just losing everything. And I'm like, I gotta get, and I just remember being on the floor, and I just remember when I got back up, so I might have passed out, I just know my world ended. And I just remember the God in me said, you had work to do. Tyrone did not suffer, but you had work to do. Know right now, but I guarantee you as you go through this process, you're gonna know, and that's pretty much how West Wednesday was actually formed. Literally, my family, we couldn't sleep at night. We literally, I'm talking about walking around like a zombie. Like I eat for days, like, and we're chasing down people that should have been transplanted to my family. We're literally calling like we went back down homicide and get like, wait a minute. We asked you about my brother. He had identification on him. They're like, Detective Delgado was like, hey, here's my number. I'm gonna call you tomorrow. Where can I meet up at you with? You know, what house can we meet at? You know, give me an address. We just lost a beautiful teenager here in the city through street violence, and we gotta deal with that. So in my mind, he said a 16-year-old baby got a throat slashed. So I'm like, I had to turn my pain off because I am a mother too. So I'm like, okay, and I started praying for that family and feeling their pain. And I'm like telling my family, look, let's just calm down, go home, y'all can sleep. We're gonna meet with these detectives tomorrow at my house, let's do it. And I remember them walking in at exactly 12 o'clock. I'll never forget Detective Delgado. I remember Colonel Russell came in there. He's the only black officer and two other white tall detectives. But they're interviewing my damn family. At our time of day, they're going around the table asking us, who are you? Where do you work at? All this type of food. So I'm like, hold up, y'all supposed to be asking questions. What's going on? So I'm feeling uneased about everything. And I just remember Detective Gallo saying, hey, Miss Jones, let me see you outside for a second. Pulled me away from my family to lie. Literally, I'm like, why can't you talk when we say this is personal, this ain't got nothing to do with your family, it's got something to do with you. Come see me real quick. So I'm like, what the hell are you ready to tell me? I'm like, well, maybe he's ready to tell me some good news about my brother, because I'm in my mind, don't want to accept my brother's gone. So I go out with him, and he said, well, Miss Jones, he said, did your brother have any health issues? I said, no, my brother. I said, he just got a physical 2 weeks ago. Do you want me to produce that physical? I can get it with no problem. Oh, no, I don't want that. I'll get that later. But he was like, I'm just saying, he was like, well, we found a small portion of drugs in your vehicle, so you know you're not going to get your vehicle again. I said, I don't care what you call me out and tell me about a damn car, and I'm trying to figure out about my murdered brother. Are you serious? And he's like, well, no, I'm just letting you know. And you know, did he use drugs? I said, first of all, he never used drugs. I said, and he wouldn't have no where did some drugs come from, because no drugs were not even, I'm dumbfounded at this moment. Why would drugs be in my car? And he's like, I said, did y'all put him in there? And I asked him straight up, did you put him in there? He was like, what are you talking about? I said, look, I want to go back in there with my family. I don't care, but literally, that same day he lied to me and said my car was on a drug hold. Literally, my car was placed in the impound for $390. It was sitting there a whole week later, and I reported it to the Sun. Google it. Google Tawanda Jones, Tyrone West, and how the detective lied to me. You can, all this is Googleable. You can Google it. Literally, he lied and saying it was to the point when I got down, they still playing games because now I go to the pound to get my car. I'm excited now to pay $390 because now I finally can ride around and try to take care of stuff for my brother. Literally was all on the street. Now my car keys is down homicide. That's another game. Like you gotta go down to homicide. So now I had to go down to home, catch a cab to go to homicide. More money out of my pocket. Get down there. He's playing all these games again. He leaves my family downstairs. I want Mr. Jones. All of y'all can't come up here. I want Mr. Jones still asking me, did Mr. West have any health issues? No, what are you talking about? Why do you keep asking? Do you have health issues, sir? You know, it was to the point that I would not change anything because the truth never changed. Like, what are you talking about? And he just kept saying, well, I said, where are my keys at, sir? Are you going to give me my keys or not? And why wasn't it with my car? Like, that's weird. So, long story short, he let me go. But the crazy part, when they walked into my family's house on the 19th, they said everything that was displayed and depicted on the autopsy report. They literally said, because he said, well, we want to make sure Mr. West didn't have a bad heart. We want to make sure Mr. West, the heat didn't become a factor into Mr. West's death. We're going to rule all these things out. We're going to cross every T, dot every I, and let every chip fall where it may. And I'm like, whatever. And long story short, 154 days later, we got the autopsy report that literally said what the detective, the guy and the Coonies told me and my family that was going to say before we even got it. And it was a lie. And I had to dig up my pocketbook because I'm like, you're not going to lie to my brother. And I kept saying, the medical examiner's office is very filed. They've been filing in the file. We did West Wednesday week after week in front of the medical examiner's office. You're not going to lie to my brother. We try to show, we ran Greg Bernstein out of office ASAP. That was the purpose of West Wednesday. We got him out of office and we took 154 days to get his autopsy, but more importantly, I went my pocketbook down $50,000 and got my brother with something that should have been maybe $20,000 because they did everybody trying to stop the truth from coming out. Everyone, like literally, they stored me out of money, and then they even played a game saying that I could not get my brother's body examined by pathologists in another state. Like, how you gonna tell me I can get my brother's body examined anywhere? If I want to send my brother's body to Mars to get examined, you're not gonna tell me about getting my brother's body examined. So long story short, went through that dog and pony show. I stood my ground, never backed down, went through it. Even my legal team told me not to do it, and I told them whatever. Ain't nobody gonna tell me about nobody, my family members, nobody gonna stop me from letting my brother have the last word. That means ain't nobody gonna talk to me. Oh well, I'll be the bad guy. And I thank God that I did it, and thank God my family supported me. And literally, we learned that my brother was murdered. He died from positional asphyxia. We learned that from two different pathologists, but David Fowler still said that, oh, Mr. West just passed out and just dropped dead and had a bad heart. Same thing he said on George Floyd trial. Same thing he said with Antoine Black. The list goes on. The crack goes on. And to this point, to the day, I'm looking at my sister Angela, Timothy Flemings. She was supposed to have been here tonight, but unfortunately, as life happened, you had trials and you had tribulations. And right now, she's going through lots of trials and tribulations while she's fighting for her brother. But her brother was murdered, y'all, a year ago. Ask me about the autopsy report. No autopsy report. Are you kidding me? A whole year. It felt like years waiting 154 days. So I couldn't imagine waiting 1 year, a year later. So I know that was a lot to unpack. But last thing, and I'm passing over to you, 2 things. Someone broke into my brother's house 2 days after he was murdered, and I got everything in black and white. I can prove this. Someone broke into his house, and I remember the landlord said it looked like it was a house raid, because everything was disheveled. And what burglar breaks into someone's house and put their belongings out on the lawn for everybody to get? Sounds like the gun trace task force, and which in that video you saw, Ruiz, the first one that pulled him over, is a part of the gun trace task force. Okay, that's the was the first one to pull my brother on. You saw the witness that was pretty much, not witness, but the victim, Darrell Hurst, that literally almost died a day before. My brother was murdered. They couldn't stop this. They didn't want to. Abdul Salam, 17 days before. And God knows who else in the mix that we don't even know about. All I know is about 38 complaints on Ruiz, and he's still working. All I know is that 2 years they said they was going to look to see if he could get fired, and we still waiting. We still waiting. Nothing has been transparent about any of this stuff that we're going through. But the thing that I want to say, somebody broke my brother's house, put his stuff out for people to take, look like a house break, and literally when I put my brother's body to be exhumed, we buried him with black. Got pictures of him in his casket. I can show y'all his pictures. And he got to Alabama with a yellow shirt on. What kind of corruption? What did they do to my brother? And then his organs were not in his body, they were in a bag. I'm not a pathologist and I don't know how about, but everything about that sounds scary. And I'm not making that part up. Mic check.
Mic check.
So much to unpack in that. So much that's angering, infuriating. But one of the things I hear you emphasizing, Tawanda, and I've thought about this before, but to come back and hear the story yet again, is there's some common tactics, if you want to use that word, that the oppressors use. There's a tactic of delay. When I mentioned in the poem earlier, the war of attrition is because the stalling of, and you hear it every day in the news, you hear it this week, in terms of the stalling of body cam, the stalling of autopsy report, the stalling, we go right on down the list, that tactic of delays of war of attrition, which is used, in which you all gutted it out and fought them back on them to your credit. But I mean, there's so many people, around the country that may not even have the resources to overcome that stalling. So there's a tactic of delay, and related to that is the tactic of expense, of causing great expense. The fact that you had to spend thousands of thousands of dollars your own money, that's insane. That is absolutely mind-boggling to me that we as families of victims have to spend our own money to do this. That is a capitalist society, carceral capitalism, to use that term. And that's another tactic. That goes all the way down to the bail system, which is still an accident. We can see that tactic of expense in many ways, but in this particular thing, where you're talking about spending your own money for independent autopsy, is absolutely ludicrous and infuriating. Then there's also this tactic of quote unquote, he had health problems. She had health problems, which is so often used and was used when my nephew was murdered, and they said, well, he died from the heart condition that he had. Darrell did have a heart condition, but the heart condition had nothing to do with his day. He was living that weekend just fine, and he had a heart condition. Gee, I wonder if it's the 2 taser shots that might have triggered the heart condition. How about that? That seems so. But they're going to hide behind this health thing. And I wanted to make sure people understood and heard you clearly when you said that David Fowler, who's the longtime medical examiner here in Maryland, was also the one on the George Floyd case that they had to push up on and expose for his lives. And I wanted to make sure that is not lost to our listeners, because that's very crucial, which leads me into kind of the tactical question in terms of reopening the cases. If you want to talk a little bit about that as far as what the movement is as far as reopening the cases.
Yeah, so pretty much we will never stop trying to get my brother's case reopened, and not just my brother's case, Anthony Anderson case, because Anthony Anderson literally was murdered a year before by the same exact unit, not police officers, but the same exact tactical unit murdered Anthony Anderson. Slammed him on his head, murdered him in cold blood. So literally trying to get these cases reopened is very important. That's the whole point of us getting different prosecutors out of office. We're not asking anybody to do us no favors. We're asking you to do your job with integrity and respect. That's it. I'm not asking for nothing more, nothing less. That's it. That's always been it. And now I'm like,
I always get excited, but then I get, like, this system is so depressing, so it's kind of like bittersweet, like, it's almost like you don't even know what, like, you can, it's like false hope almost. But every time there's an opportunity, I do get excited, and for me to know that now that they have the Attorney General's office looking into like 100 cases, even though they should be looking at every last case that this man lied upon. Decades ago, they need to go back to all the cases, not just 100. West case is one of them. The Nancy case is one of them. You know, it's just saying, like, why do we gotta pray that our loved one case is in the mix? It should have never been a closed case. It should have been an open and shut case, and them killer cops rolled in cell blocks ASAP with the key locked up underneath the bed.
We talked about David Fowler, and many may know that some may not know that David Fowler was trained in this South African apartheid system. And so it just points again for me to the fact that there's a mentality and a predisposition of oppression. So if people talk about, well, policing in America is designed to be just and what have you, no, it's the same mentality of oppression as in South African apartheid system. David Fowler is just kind of the incarnate example of that because he straddled both systems in South Africa and here in the U.S. And so you have the policing in America, that's with 3 Ks when I say it, that is a white supremacist system. But we also know that within a white supremacist system, there are those people of color who unfortunately aided in some way. And so I'm wondering if you could tell, for those that may not be familiar with your long battles with a certain state's attorney in terms of Sister Marilyn Mosby, I say that sarcastically, and not only in terms of Mosby, but also as we move into the election with Ivan Bates having won the primary, what you expect in terms of the next state's attorney administration? Do you have any more hopes? Do you not have too many hopes, or what may or may not happen with the change in the state's attorney's office? You want to just kind of touch on that?
Yeah, so pretty much with everybody passing the ball around like you on a basketball court, I don't have faith in none of those jokers. Let's be publicly clear. I don't have faith. This is Tawanda Jones speaking from my heart. I don't have faith in none of those jokers. Amen. My whole thing is, I feel like each and every last one of these politicians work for a paycheck. They have good ideas. Like if I think about our mayor, Brandon Scott, let's be crystal clear. Brandon Scott helped us push the gas or the sponsor, but ever since he's been in office, have not heard from this man. Have not heard from him, have not heard anything. And that's what they all do. And to talk about our sister Marilyn Mosby, what really hurt me the most was I believed in her for a second when Freddie Gray first got murdered. And literally she was the first one to step out there and say, you know what, I'm going, y'all hold y'all peace while I get accountability. That was the best speech I ever heard. But a speech means nothing if actions are not applied to it. That's just talk, that's just gaslight, that's just blowing smoke up our asses. Excuse my language. But literally I had faith and I really felt like she really wanted to do something. So whatever happened and turned in her and clicked in her, it just stopped. My thing is, if you're not going to do your job, then walk away from it. Don't let the people down and don't keep on acting like you're doing one thing and then you doing one thing. Like one thing with the man, she just exonerated. You just exonerated everybody again because a lot of people feel like he didn't kill this, lady or whatnot. They don't have no DNA proof and all that sort of stuff or whatever. But you'll do that publicly, but yet you'll hold Keith Davis Jr. back in the jail. You doing the same thing, like, what are you doing? Like, you said up there with one guy talking about you fighting for Freddie Gray, but I'm the one who helped push you into office, help everybody vote for you and everything to get Greg Bernstein out. And then time did you mention Tyrone West? What are you doing? That's gaslight. I'm sick of it. And I don't have no faith in Ivan Bates whatsoever, no faith in none of them. None of those voices. Until they show me something, I don't have any faith in none of them. So if that's the answer to your question, that's my answer.
To what degree have you all been able to get media into it? We know the shenanigans in terms of media in this country. I noticed that sometimes when we're down at City Hall, sometimes we're able to get one station, maybe two, often not. So working under the framework that is the fact in this country in terms of corporate media being in alliance with this type of oppression rather than fighting it. But over the years, is there any type of legitimate response and support that you've seen from Baltimore media or wider, or is it still just very piecemeal and catches in?
I feel like almost, I give credit to my brother Shorty, who always shutting down potty trained politicians, frictions, all that. Because I learned from this brother, like, I love and respect Shorty for the simple fact that we know that the media pretty much has the power to make innocent people look guilty and guilty people look innocent. It's sad how that they can portray things that people believe in, you know? And it's just sad, but to actually have the media, but my thing is we still need the media. So I'm not gonna shut the media down, I'm not gonna shut our voices not being heard. But it's always controlling the narrative. As long as you keep controlling the narrative and you keep true and keep telling your truths over and over again, they have no other choice, no matter how much they want to cut and play 10 seconds of your truth and cut you and pull in there, you will always get the truth when they show you. So the media has been working for me and I've been working for them. So I mean, it is what it is, but I don't have no faith in none of the media. But I can say, like, the one that's been doing like most comprehensive news has been, I give credit to like Real News, because they've been like real transparent and things of that nature. I give credit to City Newspaper, because they was raw and uncut. They told all the people who was up there cussing, they gonna say the profanity in the newspaper and everything. So, and you know, the Afro, definitely get on, you know, shout out praises and things like that, and Channel 2 and Jay-Z 13 sometimes, you know, so I mean, all of them, this is what you got now to work them, like they work you for that story, work them too, let's work together, work it.
Definitely. What you just highlighted is the importance of independent media, because the folks that you really emphasize talking about the Real News Network, city paper leadership, and of course now, you know, Lisa Snowden and her team in reforming Baltimore Beat.
Yes,
So we're talking about the importance of independent media, even to counteract this coverage, lack of coverage from corporate media. One of the things that I like about what the West Coalition movement has been able to demonstrate, and I know you've said this in other settings, this is really more of a comment than a question, but it draws together a group of people that we don't necessarily line up exactly on all things.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes down to police reform versus police abolition, you have folks that are across that spectrum in the coalition. I have come to be on the abolition side, there are folks more on the reform side. When it comes to prisons and what to do with prisons in terms of prison abolition or prison improvement, we have folks that have been part of this movement over the past, 10 years almost, that land on different points of the spectrum on that. Mm-hmm. But we all come together on the need to prosecute killer cops. And I just wanted to make that publicly known in terms of the success of the West Coalition, bringing folk together under that solid, focused spearhead of the task, even if we're on different points of the spectrum on other things. And I think that's something that you and the team have really been able to do well. And I just wanted to point that out there and put that out there.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, without question. Speak for a minute about a subject which may not be as known, but has gotten some attention in the past couple of years. And certainly those of us who have discussed it from the standpoint of families of victims have talked about this for a while. And this is this whole matter of the families of victims. I don't want to say versus because that's so adversarial of a word, So I'll say the conversation, and you can take that and run with it, between families of victims and Black Lives Matter leadership, and where that is. I know there's been some tension, between I know there's at least one meeting, I believe, between the two. And I'm not sure if you have any particular thoughts on that or where that's going.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, to me, like, I know a lot of families have been disappointed in the Black Lives Matter movement and general, because, like, it's a lot of rumors, and, there's always rumors and speculation with everything, especially if you got something real big and that's going good and it's pulling people together, then there's the divide and conquer game. But my thing is, whether it's Black Lives Matter or whatever, if you say you are for the people, be for the people. Invest in the people. That's my thing. Don't say you are here for the people and you sat up there living in $1 billion home. You ain't put nothing back in the community. You ain't even turning your head to even answer the phone, how people are. You ain't doing nothing. That's not for the people. That you use the people to get to where you are. And there's a lot of folks I'm not going to call Black Lives Matter out, because like at the end of the day, you got to be real careful with this wicked system we live in. They like it when we call each other out. They said that and they laughed, they loved that. So I'm not going to work for, I'm not going to be the one to call nobody out, but I'm going to let you know, right is right and wrong is wrong. If you're not going to be right, then you shouldn't do anything.
Amen. Couple more questions, and I want to let folk know that we're going to do some Q&A. It's one of the advantages of doing Westminster here in this setting this evening, is that we do have an opportunity for questions from the group, and I really want you to begin to think of that and take advantage of the fact that Tawana and the team are here with us, and so we definitely will be coming around with the microphone in just a few minutes for some Q&A. Just a couple other quick thoughts or questions. You know, and many in the room know that ministry is part of my background, which the purpose of this conversation means I get to talk about some of my colleagues like a dog. Because for me, there ought to be hundreds, there ought to be whole congregations worth of people out marching with us. There ought to be an array, if not a whole phalanx of ministers and faith leaders involved in the movement. And I don't see that as often as I should. To what degree over the past 9 years do you think that you receive support from the faith community, strong, mediocre, or to what degree have you been backed up by the faith community in this movement?
Well, I have not really been, to be honest, God is my witness, but I just feel like the man has feed my spirit, Bishop Wilson. He talks to me, he feeds me with good thoughts week after week. And then not only that, but when it came down to like burying people that are in my family, literally like churches that you to donate and you gotta pay the tithes and all that. My bishop is not like that. He literally buried some of my family members that they've been in church and for years and decades, but because they didn't pay the tithes, their pastors and bishops turned their back on it. My bishop actually buried, I could just call him and say, hey, Bishop Orlando Wilson, I need you. And another brother that set everything on fire. Big shout out to Pastor Hebert Brown, who's growing food, showing us how to eat right. He have been in and out of Annapolis, spending the night with me to testify against the put his faith and what he's a true man of God. Let's be crystal clear. So shout out to Pastor Hebert Brown.
Amen. Amen. It's so nice to be able to lift up those couple of names, and pisses me off that there isn't a whole row of names that you can name, but let me not get started on it. So moving toward question and answer, as you look back over 9 years, what are the lessons that you can teach all of us in terms of organizers and activists? What are some of the lessons that you learned in terms of how to put together a sustained movement, mistakes made, things done well, or just one or two of the primary things that you would say, okay, we as justice people, when we are involved in these movements, need to think of X, Y, or Z?
So the thing that I always been saying, even before I even got involved, before my brother was murdered and I got active in the community because I had no choice. This wasn't nothing that I signed up for. But I always say live to love and love to live. And the reason why I say that, love is the key to everything. Like we can literally hate things that happen to us, and that's okay. That's a part of our feelings, a part of us processing things and all of that. But to me, love breaks down all types of walls, all types of things where you've seen everything going strong, going bad. Literally knowing that if you're blessed to wake up the next day, the next moment, to see the other side, you can make it through. Some days are going to be shitty, excuse my language, and some days are going to be very prosperous. And you feel like you're on top of the world, and the next minute the whole entire world has found on top of you. You know, but you still have to live to love and love to live. And I encourage any and everybody, like I said, if I don't get nothing else out of this, just to teach families, don't trust the system, fight the system, be your loved one's voice. They can't be here no more, but as the people that murdered them see you navigating and telling their truth, that will, I'm telling you, that type of love shuts down everything. Literally, you might don't feel it, but I know every time Louise and them, and I always, and it said that I only call on him, but David Lewis, every last 17 one of those stinking maniacs, even if I don't say your name, you know who you are and we know what you did. You know, so I hope all y'all burn in hell because even though I'm a Christian and I sound crazy, but I'm not forgiving that. Like, y'all pray for me because I'm not forgiving them. I'm not going to be the one to be rubbing nobody back and giving them a massage. Let me get close to my brother killing in the courtroom and see if I give him a back massage.
I heard that. You talk about love, it makes me think Che Guevara said that the art of a revolutionary is love, and I think you definitely have demonstrated that for us. As I go to grab our microphone so that we can do some questions and answers, let me ask two things. One, how folks can donate to the West Coalition to help you sustain the movement financially, and what current actions should we be doing? Let this be a call for current action to those in the room and to those that are watching streaming. What do we need to be paying attention to right now, or supporting or mobilizing on right now? So how to donate to the West Coalition and what we need to be doing right now. And while you answer that, I'm going to go get the mic for some questions.
Yeah, so the biggest donation to me is fighting this dirty system, knocking it down, building it back up. That's where I'm at with it. Like literally, so I want y'all to just stay focused because we know that the old current attorney general was on the way out the door, and I know that it's the Doug Pony show because if he really cared, like he said he cared, Antoine Black family wanted to make one through what they was going through. And at the last minute, while the whole world watching, now it's a change of heart. No, we gotta hold people accountable. Keep fighting this system. I don't care if they bring Anthony Brown, whoever they bring Michael Jackson back, reincarnated, and put him in office. My whole point is, we need to make sure that whoever they bring in as the Attorney General looks at all of these cases of what David Fowler did, and we need to find out and establish how we can get charges on David Fowler, because that man needs to go to jail. We don't just need a little slap on the wrist. He needs to be accountable. ASAP. They should have been knocking down his door, dragging him out, throwing him in a cell block with them dirty cops, because he got so many killers up. And then anytime you will be that bold to set up on a stand and the whole world watching you and say that George Floyd died from everything but dirt shoulders because he died, he smelled like gas, he had a bad heart, he just had, it was a bad day for George Floyd. Really? After what we saw, a man dying and screaming for his dying mother, after what we saw. And the crazy part, after what he sees every day when he's over somewhere, when he was working there, all the bodies that he saw that was beat down, tatted, torn, could not say anything. He did absolutely nothing. So I want y'all to make sure that when it's time to lobby for this police, I call it the police officers killer rights because it allows them to kill us. We need to knock it down. They keep on trying to put the water down. Stop letting them throw water on these slave laws that enslave us to keep on going through this pain over and over again. We really need to make them change these laws that way that we can at least have a ground to stand on. We need a ground to stand on by knocking these dirty laws down, because there's so many things on the books and they keep trying, that's why I don't believe in that reform stuff. Because I remember looking back at when my brother was murdered, I was like, maybe we had body cameras. And then now I'm saying with the body cameras, all it's doing is just pretty much letting them engage in activities so they can get to relive it. There's some sick bastards, so they get off on watching it. I'm being perfectly excuse my language, I don't probably offend nobody. I'm just being on, they get off on watching a life leave our level. So that's just like, they get to watch that over and over again. They are serial killers. So we need to knock all that down and build it back up and just keep telling our truth. And when we pretty much start our letter writing campaign or whatever we get ready to do, please support it. Please support it, because Tyrone West, Anthony Anderson can easily be y'all. Anthony Anderson was murdered and they came back and they said, you know what, it was a murder. How can you justify a murder? How can you justify a murder? That's what they make it make sense. You cannot. So again, we need to change these laws, and if any other information y'all want here, it can be found on the Tyrone West, Justice for Tyrone West page, and we have a web page, the West Coalition, we have the web page, you can follow our West page, and yes, donate your time, donate whatever you want to. Thank you.
Thank you. And as folks formulate their questions, I should have turned this around earlier. I want everybody to be able to see that these are, as Wanda just said, the bastards that brutally killed Tyrone. And so we need to call them to the carpet. I'm glad you talked about the slave laws, because policing in America is a slave system, literally descended from slave patrol and from the breaking of the labor class. And so I'm so glad that you lifted that up. And please let us hear Tawanda as she puts us on yellow alert in terms of upcoming letter writing campaigns in other ways. I do want to emphasize, and she's a very modest person, she may not emphasize, I will emphasize financial support and donations in any way possible to the movement. Are there some questions? And we certainly invite you to keep your questions kind of straightforward and truncated, just in the interest of the time. But if there are certain questions or comments, then we can do this. Here is, of course, a member of the West Coalition and movement.
All right, mine ain't a question, it's an action. I've been going through this thing with the police since 2007, all right? I got locked up in 2 different states in charge of terrorism. I gave Tawanda Jones this book back in the day. It was about the police, and it was about this system that we got. She ain't got the book no more. I gave that book to the Department of Justice, all right? Long story short, if we're gonna beat them, we gotta beat them at their own game, all right? That's the only way we're gonna beat them. And the way to beat them is through the courts, because that's what it does to us. So this matter of the master's house, you gotta use the master's tools. Marcella Holloman just got access to the grand jury. I've been working with Marcella Holloman since her son was killed, Maurice Donald Johnson. All right, me and Brian Bates. I'm an ex-felon. I came in straight out the Illinois Department of Corrections. I'm a penitentiary lawyer. I know the law. I'm the most unarrestable black man in Baltimore because I know the law. All right? So in this year, when these people sit in their seats, when Ivan Bates sits in his seat, and he's talking about going after criminals, make him do his job. Senate Bill 372 is a private citizen's access to the grand jury. Make Ivan Bates let us go to the grand jury. Judge Karen is the judge in Baltimore City. Make Judge Karen walk you to the grand jury door. Stephanie Smith is your delegate for Baltimore City. Make her walk you to the door. Access the grand jury the same way that they access the grand jury to indict us, indict them. Nobody's above the law. It's called checks and balances. 2023, check yourself.
All right, check. Other thoughts or comments or questions?
In less than 2 weeks since election day, there are a bunch of ballot initiatives. One of them is Question H, which is bringing Baltimore City Police back under local control. A lot of people do not know that the Baltimore City Police are currently a state agency since 1860. And, we've had to go down to Annapolis, and they only work 4 months a year in order to, get anything done. And then you would have to hope that a senator or a delegate would take up your cause. With this change, bringing them back under local control, we have access to the mayor and the city council year round and can enact whatever changes we can, have input on their budget and, have more control over what happens with them outside of, right now, the mayor only has control over who is the commissioner, that's it. And even the commissioner can't do anything to the cops, so. The question looks a little wonky on the ballot. It looks absolutely ridiculous, and it looks like it says that we're actually trying to establish a police department. Don't let that fool you. It is, to change the city charter to put the Baltimore City Police under local control, and it's extremely important that everybody votes for that. I check.
I'm glad you brought that up. And this goes back to this, when we're talking about media manipulation. So glad you raised the way that ballot is worded. When I took a look at it, I'm glad that I was hearing some other folk explaining to me, because, you know, for me, it was just like, really, you know, the word that way, it did sound like it was affirming the creation of more police, when that is not it. But that just goes to the tactics. And when we talk about this idea of doing what we can until we get to abolition. So we now both emphasize the deconstruction of policing, as we know, we're building a different public safety system. But if we take, what other steps we can take toward that abolition, toward that deconstruction. If this is one of them, but even in terms of the way they worded that ballot, they are fighting against that.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised, sadly, if that does not pass because of the way it was worded, because it's moving people. Hopefully it will, I'm glad you raised it. But that is the shenanigans of language that we have to be careful about. Other thoughts, questions, and comments? Bill and David.
Thanks, Ken. I think sometimes we have to do two things at the same time. I'm getting a little older, so it's hard to do that. But Harriet Tubman comes to mind because the two things she was doing at the same time was, number one, trying to free as many people as possible, but number two, trying to work for the abolition of the whole slave system. And it was admirable in my mind that she was able to do both of those and play a big role in both of those. So I just want to ask you, we live in a system not slavery anymore, it's capitalism. Yeah, that's true.
Slavery, don't get it twisted.
Okay, it has some differences, it has a lot of similarities, I agree with that. So, you worked very hard fighting for accountability for Tyrone and for other victims of police killing. And that's sort of like analogous to Harriet Tubman fighting to free some people within that framework of that system. But we keep butting heads with the whole systemic racist police brutality problem, that exists in our society. So I just want to know your thoughts on, can we win without abolishing the system, or we also have to abolish the system?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's real like hard for me to answer that question. But it's something because it seems like something definitely got away, you know what I mean? Like something has to happen soon, because so many people are dying, and so many people have already been murdered. Like we're talking about 400 plus years of people just dying, getting murdered. It went from the casual killing act in the 1600s down to just all this justified homicides, and the police is killing you, and all they gotta do is just say, I fear for my life. You know, they're the only career, if you think about it, the only occupation that you can actually do the most heinous thing is take a person's life. And all you gotta do is say, I fear for my life, and that's why I took your life or somebody else's life, and you walk away free. And that is disgusting, so we need to definitely change that. And like I said, if times don't change, there's something that's going to be forced to change, and it's only to me, it seems like change only come in when they see everybody fighting together. And unfortunately, it seems like when it's an uprising, like when people say, you know, enough is enough, and they start burning down stuff, and that's when they hear you. They don't hear you when you're out there peacefully protesting. And I'm not saying go burn down nothing, because I'm always about peace and love. But at the same time, kumbaya ain't doing nothing. So that's my answer.
Final question before we get into, do we have our names this week?
Yes.
Okay, great. Final question, and we're going to get into the names of those who are mentioned.
And I was gonna say, I agree with, the attorney about the judicial system, about everything that has to be changed. You sound like one of them.
He definitely do sound like one. I thought it was a time in there when I first met them. I sure did.
But, is there any, I know now, well, at least at that time when Brother Tyrone was murdered, police officers were present at the autopsy, was doing the pathologist examination. Is there any litigation being done there? And then also, can you just speak a little bit, give a little more detail about what happened there, what your interaction with the police during that time?
Yeah, so thank you. That's a great question. And this is so much to unpack that I'm getting everything that I'm gonna say right there and half the stuff that I'm gonna say. What it didn't say about supporting, voting for that, definitely get back control. And I definitely wanted to mention that it was just so sad. A lot of people don't know, like when my brother was murdered, literally the cops that murdered him actually got into the ambulance while it was driving slow. It took them a whole half hour, literally, to drive around the corner to a hospital that's 3 minutes away. Good Sam's is 3 minutes away. They left my brother there dying, dead for a half hour, and they pulled off slow, and they had nurses on the scene that were witnesses that said, he need help, what y'all doing, type of thing. And they told them, when we told them, get the F back in the house, the same thing can happen to you. And literally at my brother's autopsy, well, again, we had killer cops standing there while Pam Southall was working on my brother's body with the police right there. And I'm like, who does that? Like, are you kidding me? And the crazy part was litigation, and I had to take my name off of that, because they're not gonna silence or craft my language and tell me what I can and can't say about 17 murders that took my brother. Like, ain't no money. You could have offered me all the money in the world. I would have told you to stick it where the sun don't shine. Because anytime I get my copybook to get a second autopsy, while we're going through litigation, I didn't give a damn about the money. My only investment was to make sure that my brother babies, which are my babies, because my niece and nephew, I love them dearly, was to be taken care of, because their father wasn't able to produce because he was murdered. So if somebody murdered me, they better take care of my children. I don't get that. But then what they want you to do is trade off your voice and silence. They want you to suffer in silence, and they call giving you a paycheck. They call that justice. Like, I literally had Mayor Captain Pugh at the time tell me, "Oh, your family did the justice." I said, "What I missed? I died and came back. What I'm being resurrected today? When I missed that?" That's the part I've been waiting on. She said, "Oh, you guys gotta pay our settlement," and I had to literally show her a part of my brother's body that was hacked up. They didn't even take autopsy pictures of them. And what autopsy do you know where they don't take a picture of the victim's body? Like showing you the X-ray, they hid everything. But guess who took pictures? Guess who got them in and out of state? Like everything, and then they wasn't ready for me. And they tried all that. I done lied on them. I had so much, I got death threats, all that. None of that's gonna stop me. And God forbid, even if they stop me, I still have family members that gonna come out and step up and stand back and say, hey, y'all not doing this. So it's gonna continue until we get accountability. So we have not gotten any type of accountability. The only thing, like I said, little small justice, we were actually able to, and I still don't know about it because they don't talk about it. When we got the gag, we helped be a part of getting the gag order. Of course, it wasn't just the West Coalition, it was the West Coalition along with other coalition groups that got together to push the gag order law, pretty much to let the victims talk about their what happened to their loved ones. and not have their money, jeopardize their money. That's it. Like, and it's our money. Like, we're paying these killing cops to kill us. They're taking that money. We're paying their salary. That's like, and then the money when they kill us, that's our money. That's like, they taking that. So then you gonna take money out of my pocketbook and tell me don't talk about it. You take a meaning, give me no money. You take my little pennies from out my pocketbook and tell me here it's one. You make these brown pennies, but don't talk about it. Ridiculous.
Truly ridiculous. We will have our names of those who have died due to violence.
Mike Check!
Mike Check. So before we go to this part, I just wanted to say that this is what we always do at West End, is we take 1 minute for those who like to pray, that's, in the church heavy, that's fine, you're not, because everybody's not in the church. That's what I love about the West Coalition, because we come from different backgrounds, walks of life, but we believe in one purpose, one cause, one fight type of thing. That's my big shout out, West Coalition, love you guys. But nevertheless, we're gonna take 1 minute to keep the family in thoughts, because these are not just the names you're gonna hear, like it may just be a name, but at the same time, people are suffering from, these are somebody's loved one, these are human beings. This is the sad, like, because when you get that call and nobody wants, that changed your life. I don't care if it's a killer cop, I don't care if it's an ex-spouse, somebody down the street, whatever. That is a loss that nobody wants to suffer or go through. So right now, let's just take 1 minute, start now, before, unfortunately, I pass over the mic for Brother Brian. And unfortunately, as they have, because every time, it seems like Uncle Bill, he reads the police brutality list, but every time he gives us like 45 names in a week, and then he give us another 23 the next week, then 16, they slow it up, and then it get backed up again, so that way, when he give us another 43 names that happen in a week, they'll make us really like, oh, because they were so backed up. No, that's what they want to, I'm glad we generate our own system, so we can have our database to know when somebody's killed, and we don't need to rely on the system to tell us that. So let's just take 1 minute of silence, and pray. If you don't, please send positive thoughts, and just know that this is someone loved one. Let's take 1 minute, start now. Mic check.
Mic check.
Thank you guys so much for taking that minute. And before my brother Brian starts with the list, I just wanted to say I'm still praying for our sister Angela, who is going to take that 4 to 5 hour drive tonight, but she's actually dealing with the loss of a loved one. Her cousin is married to the poor bus driver that was murdered. So she's dealing with that. She got to come back up here this weekend for a funeral. It's just so much. She's the type of sister that even through her pain, she was going to still make it up here today. And I told her, I said, no, it's too many signs. She was getting bad feelings, and I was getting bad. I baked her cake last night and broke in half. I'm like, it's not meant for you to come today. Well, she's here in spirit, so I just want to give, especially the bus driver now. I'm sorry, what's her name? Anybody know the bus driver name? What's her name? I think it's Ellen. I'm not sure, but I'm just praying for that family because she's a mother, had children, a husband. This is really a sad time. And even the list that he's about to release on this, my heart goes out. Thank you, Brother Brown. It's all yours. Mic check.
Mike Check.
Just before I start with the list, say because there are many people who don't know the genesis of this. Whenever I get into conversation with people about police violence, white people at least, they're always like, well, more black people are killing black people and blah, blah, blah. Community violence, black on black violence. And what are they doing about that? And you don't hear that being protested. And I had to say that, yeah, I do. I hear that protest all the time. There's ceasefire in Baltimore. There's all sorts of community work being done in Baltimore against community violence. And the people I see there are the people that I see at the West Coalition, and they're the people that I see in Red Emmas, and it's those people that I see. I don't see white people from the suburbs fighting community violence here. I hear them complaining about it, but I don't see them doing anything about it. And I felt that one thing that we could do specifically here in West Wednesday was to lift up people who are victims of violence and remember them and their families and their friends and their loved ones, and just echo their name, lift their names up and echo those back. So I'm just going to read these names and their ages, and if you could just repeat those back to me as we do, and that would be, I guess, that's sort of where we tend to close down the action with that remembrance. So this past week in Baltimore, Walter Ferguson, 26 years old.
Walter Ferguson, 26.
Dontere Jones, 39 years old.
Dontere Jones, 39.
David Braxton, 40 years old.
David Braxton, 40.
Brandon Williams, 29 years old.
Brandon Williams, 29 years old.
Michael Smith, 35 years old.
Michael Smith, 30 years old.
Thank you.
Do we have a national list? I don't know about Bill, if you read that or put
No, so again, they didn't reveal the list tonight, because like I said, when he reads to in this, that's why I came, it may not even know truth or anything to that, that's just me. But every time he brings a whole lot of lists, we go for like a week or two, we won't hear it named, and so this week, I'm quite sure it's a lot of names, but they're not telling us, so we'll lift them up as soon as we get them, and thank you for that.
Amen and Ashe. Before we give the final round of applause to Tawanda West Coalition, just a couple of notes. For those of you that are in person with us here, you can go ahead and put in an order if you want to go ahead and do that. Just as soon as we dismiss, so that we can get that order in. The books that you see are on sale, and I do want you to kind of take a look at some of the books that we have on display. These are just a sampling of many books that we have in terms of policing in America, the prison system, and what have you. So just a few things that we have on display that really speak to everything that we've spoken of. The poem that I performed earlier tonight about my nephew is called Poem for Jarrell, and that's available in the collection there also. And do remember that Andrea Ritchie will be here in November, the 26th, if I'm calling the date correctly, Saturday, November 26th, to talk about the book that she and Mariam Kaba have just released, No More Police. All right, and then again, folks, right into the conversation that we are talking about. Please remember to see if there's any way that you can possibly support the West Coalition financially or with your time and efforts, showing up when the coalition hits the streets in terms of in-person events, letting people know around the country and around the world about the online streaming so that we can get the word out on these matters more carefully. And you heard Tawanda put us on yellow alert in terms of some upcoming letter writing actions and other things that we can do. And certainly we at Red MS will be paying attention to those and putting the word out on those actions when they come. My sister, I love you, man, baby, you know that.
Love you more.
What you're doing, and I really, really appreciate you coming up and telling again the story that is painful every time you tell it, but that is so important to be heard. And so we thank you and the entire West Coalition team for all of the efforts that you continue to do. I want us to give up some real radical Red MS noise one more time for Tawanda West and the West Coalition. Right there.